Live. You always think we're not.
Now we're live.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's another Marketing Unleashed Live. We have Michelle Worthy on today. I'm excited to talk to her because she's been doing a lot of things lately. You've been a busy woman, and there's a lot of questions I have for you about some of the things you've been doing recently. And we're going to get there. We're going to talk about business and some of the hiring, marketing that you've been doing lately, and your new shop and all of that. We're gonna dabble into that and maybe talk about some ambassador stuff that you do, just kind of your experience with it and all that. But I want to start out with, while we get people kind of coming on the live, just to introduce yourself for anybody that doesn't know you, and kind of give me a breakdown of your just intro to the dog grooming industry and like the key points that led you to becoming a business owner later on.
Okay. So my name is Michelle Worthy. All right. I'm an internationally certified master groomer. It's probably the proudest moment of my life. That piece of paper I got in the mail, I was like, yay, right? Biggest thing I've ever done. Anyway, I've been in the industry since 1991. I know it sounds like a long time because, I'm not that old, but I did start at 10. Yes, I did. And
You
my
started
mom was
when? How old?
when I was 10.
10 years old. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, what were you doing at 10 though? Like what exactly were you doing at 10 years old?
okay, so my sister's like a year older than me, and we lived, I would say, within a mile from an adoption center called Love at First Sight. And me and my sister would go volunteer all our time there, so we would walk there when it was still safe to walk in neighborhoods and stuff at that age, and we would hose down kennels, we would bathe all the dogs, bathe all the kittens, we took them up for the shots, we like helped get them adopted out. We probably worked harder at 10 and 11 than most 30 and 40-year-olds I know.
Man.
We were on it. And that just kind of, gave me, I was already in love with animals anyway, but that just gave me the dot about grooming, And then when I was 13, I met my mom because she didn't raise me. And she was a groomer. And I was like, oh, there's actually there's something I can do for a
Yeah.
living with this, right? And then, so that was interesting. And I started working with her, doing some shave downs. She's a real country groomer. Like, that's kind of the basic,
Yeah.
just basic country grooming. And so that was fun. And then I started doing other things. And I didn't really think that there was good money into it. So it was like, it seemed really interesting and like something that's like a good venue for my artist side. And, but I always wanted to do something that, everybody has dreams of making more money than whatever. And back then this is a long time ago. So that's when a pet groomer was like the dirty job in the back of a stinky pet store that sold puppies. And, especially where I'm at, that's just kind of the vibe it still was back in the day. And the only people that really groomed were true dog people. And I say that, and when I say true dog people, I mean, they bred dogs, they showed dogs, they own groom shops, they own
Yeah.
boarding because that funded their ability to go to dog shows. And now it's just so corporate and so big now that there's groomers that, I mean, it's just a job, it's not their life, their livelihood. But anyway, so yeah, it just wasn't very glamorous back in the day. And then I always had this idea that it could be more glamorous. I wanted like a big spa and all the things, but all that bouginess wasn't like people didn't. I feel like, especially here where I'm at, Clarksville is still really small. It's gotten really big lately, but they just don't understand that way of thinking with dogs and dog grooming.
Yeah.
So it took a long time. And then when I was about 18, I was working at a grooming salon, and we were me and the lady there, we were going to leave because we weren't sure if they were closing down or not. So we were going to work at a factory. And she's like, I can't work there. They're not going to pay me enough. I said, what do you mean? That's good money. She's like, I make more money here. And that's when I finally was like, you make how much money grooming dogs? And back then I was like, well, that's pretty good. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the factory, right? And I'm going to save, they matched 50-50 with your 401k. So I'm like, okay, at 5 years, I'll get my 50-50 match, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to go pay for Nash Academy. And that's my goal. So I have 5 years in this factory. I'm going to do that. I'm still going to do on the side. I'm going to groom. And I had kids and all that stuff. And so they let me go at 4.5 years. So I didn't get my 50-50 payout. And that's what they do there to, because it's cheaper for them to
Oh,
go. Right.
wow.
Cheaper for them to let you go and not pay out that big
Dirty.
money because I put in a lot. Like I put in as much from my check that I could afford
Yeah.
at the time. Anyway, so and then I lost my house to foreclosure, went through a divorce, all these things, and I was like,
Whew.
"Where's my dream? What happened?" And so I just continued teaching myself. I'm all self taught. Um, the first seminar I went to, it wasn't until after my daughter was born, so 2006, and it was Jay Scruggs and Sue Zecco, and then that just fueled me, and I was just like, "What is going on? Like that's what I want in life." And I still couldn't afford, to go to grooming school, but I just kept pushing myself, and then finally, I started competing and got into open pretty quick because I've been grooming for such a while at that point, and I would see the Groomer to Groomer
Yeah.
magazines come in, and I'd be looking, it's like these stars on, in this book. I'm like, I could go there, and I'd be looking at some of the dogs. I'm like, I could groom like that. And so I did. I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
How
And
did
then
you even
finally,
come across that stuff? Like, how did you, like, you got into grooming real young, you did the job thing, but like, how did you get introduced to the world of like the industry of where there's seminars and there's competitions and, where did you discover this, or did somebody tell you, or like, how did you get introduced?
well, honestly, I mean, coming up mainly in the dog show world, the AKC world, because the people that I worked for when I was young, they were he was the president of the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel Club of America, and his husband was an AKC delegate. They've since passed, recent actually. It was really sad. And then I've just always been around people that was the dog show world, right? So then whenever I
Mm-hmm.
went to work for this one place, they had a Groomer Groomer magazine. She bred Rhodesian Ridgebacks, really big into that. And there was just a Groomer Groomer magazine that was there that somehow got there. And I went
Yeah.
to the Chicago Backer Show for like 2 years. She took me there, and I was just like, whoa. So I love when I get to take people to a grooming expo for their first time ever because it's just like
Yeah.
eye opening, right? So it was eye opening. And then they closed the Backer Show, which was really sad because it was a beautiful show. But I went there like 2 years in a row, and then she took me to Hershey a couple years later. I think I worked for her for like 7 years off and on, and that's when I first competed because I wanted to be certified because I wanted to do
Yeah.
something that was on a piece of paper that proved something because nobody else in my town was really doing that. I think we had one certified groomer um, around that time in the area, and I just wanted that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get certified. The competition thing is just kind of second thing, right? Because I would go there. It's like two birds, one stone. You go get certified, and then
Mm-hmm.
okay, you compete too. Maybe you'll win, maybe you won't. It doesn't matter. It's all fun as long as you're getting what you want out of it and learning, getting critiques and all that. And of course, it was
Yeah.
Hershey, and my first competition, I won first place in entry, and it
Oh
was
my
like, oh,
gosh.
so that just pushed me to be like,
That's
okay, what's next?
exciting.
Let's go.
Yeah, that'll fuel you for sure. Like, it's definitely not super common that your very first show you place first. That's
But I,
like,
I must say, I had a really good mentor. So the lady that I worked with, that I used her dog as an English
that helps.
Cocker, she's like, I don't know, she's like historic. She's like a legend in the English Cocker and Irish Setter, AKC world. So she
Hmm.
taught me a lot about how to groom that English Cocker, and then it just kind of went from there. I had to get my own. Then I spent all my income tax 1 year buying a bunch of my own dogs because I'm like, I don't want to borrow anybody's dog. I just need on my own. And I'm a single mom,
Yeah,
struggling.
right.
There was no buying dogs unless income tax came in. That's when I usually would get a car, but we would just it would just kind of depend. So that year I got a bunch of dogs, and then the next year I spent all of it and prepaid for going to all the shows, my certifications, so that it was already spent. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
spend it on anything else but this career. So we sacrificed and gave up things for me to like push myself, but I hope it made a difference and it's good for now. So here we
Well, I
are.
mean, you had a goal, right? You wanted to get certified. That was important to you. I feel like, you know, depending on the certifications these days,
Yeah, well,
there's
back
different.
then,
It's a different world right now than it was, I guess. Then,
it was
maybe
back
new
then. There was
certifications will come up too.
there wasn't open book testing back then, which You know, I will say though, those open book testings, I feel like the questions, because right at the end is when I like did the last of my certification, and I've helped some others with it. Now it's like they're trick questions. It's like, wait, I read
They
that.
are. Yeah,
There's
that's
like
what I
one word
hear is
off.
like, it's so tricky where the way they word it, it just like, should you or could you or would you, like, why, like it's just tricky for no reason, really. Like, I feel like it could be probably better worded, but that's, I mean, that's part of it. You gotta know your stuff, and it's
Right.
important to have that, I think, as a business owner, because you are more validated. You could put it up on the wall and, show that you know what you're doing and you have education. Otherwise, like that's one thing that I think a lot of people get confused with is like being certified versus having a certificate of completion.
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
I feel like they're like, people get really hung up on like taking a course and really wanting a certificate, thinking like, oh, it's a certificate course, but you're not being certified in
Right.
it. And that's such a different thing where you're testing out and you're having, to perform in front of someone and like show your work, and you really need to know these things and you're studying for these things in depth. It's not just you take a single course and you get certified in something because you know a little bit more about it. Certificates of completion, I think, are important so that you can also show that you're learning other things and that there's continued education or, like new things that you're learning. But yeah, that being certified and being able to put those little letters after your name and having that as a just kind of verification of your knowledge is really, I think, great as a business owner. I mean, I think just as a groomer in general, anybody that's doing that, it's, going to help you get probably better jobs. I mean, as you hire, right? We'll get into like how you started the business, but kind of to just hop around a little bit. As you hire, do you look at people that have certifications and be like, you're probably way more qualified, maybe even pay them more for those qualifications? Like,
Right.
do you look at people differently for those certifications as a business owner hiring?
I mean, I get really excited if I see somebody's got a certification. It's very exciting. Because it's the not to get off on another different topic, but the industry is very oversaturated with mediocre groomers, and not out of any fault of their own, but there's just a lot of issues. We can talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. But so to find somebody
Yeah,
that
probably because it's mediocre education happening.
no, correct. Like I said, no fault of their own most of the
Yeah.
time. It just is what it is. There's this big just need for groomers, and there's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of schools, and it's like so they're just like they learn from whoever, and they just kind of
Mm-hmm.
fly by the seat of their pants, and they think they're doing good because they don't continue their education because they're making decent money and they're living. So they're like, why bother? And then anyway,
Yeah.
that's a
Or they
topic.
go
But
to
no, I get
school and maybe they don't even learn enough. I've heard people go through whole
oh
programs
yeah.
at schools and they come out and they still don't know anything enough to get a dog groomed in a shop.
Right. I mean, all those schools are just basic training. I mean, they're the basic
Mm-hmm.
skills. If you can shave down a dog and do a cute round head, and maybe play with some breed standard profile stuff, you're good to go. You're going to graduate. You're going to be able to make,
Yeah.
in a decent area, close to $1,000 a week. And why bother? You got kids, you got this, you got that going on. Nobody wants to go
Mm-hmm.
compete. Nobody wants to go. I mean, they do, but it's hard to find them. The percent
Yeah.
of people that actually do that, I would love to know the numbers on the percent of people that actually compete compared to the amount of groomers that never even go in the ring. And they're just like, oh, I'm not going to ever do that. I don't need to learn.
I mean, a lot of them don't even go to the shows. There's so many groomers out there, and like just the tiniest little bit of them go to shows, and it's a lot of
Correct.
always the same people going to those shows. So like, very few newer people coming. So, that's for them to even go is one thing, and then to compete is like such an even smaller amount of people. And then to keep competing, like, because they might start and then do it a few times and be like, oh, this isn't for me. You got to be a special breed to be a competitive groomer for sure.
It takes a special kind of person that wants to beat themselves up, and then at the end of the show, you're like, I'm never doing this again.
A
And
bunch
by
of
the time the next one
masochists
comes
out there.
yes, by the time the next one comes around, you're like, oh, I can't wait to beat myself up and try to do 5 dogs in one weekend.
Yep.
But no, when I
Crazies.
see certified people apply for a job, I'm so excited because not only do I know that they're going to do a good job, but I know that they're going to be safe, and I know that they've
Hmm.
taken pride in their work enough to put themselves, that far. And we're going to have a lot more in common than somebody that's like, I can groom. Who cares? So
Hmm.
it's just like, it makes me super excited. You don't see many of them come across
Yeah.
um, looking for jobs. I think there's only, in this town, I think there's only three of us. And, we're a
Wow.
pretty good population. So I don't know how many are in Nashville because, that's really, really close. So I think there's
Yeah.
only three of us in this town. And one's been certified for
So,
like ever.
so tell me about the start of your business. Like you were self-taught, we got through that, and you started going to shows and competing. At what point were you like, oh, I really want to open up my own space? And like, why?
So I always did, but real quick, I want to go back to the one thing about like teaching myself and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It and wanting to go to Nash from like the day that I knew that I wanted to do this for a living. It was really full circle when Vivian asked me if I wanted a job there, because I'm like, okay, what? Like I wanted to come to school here to do something in my career, and now I'm going to be the lead instructor here. What? Like I that's when I was like, okay, I've done what I wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But wanted to teach. That was the thing, is like, if I could build my credentials enough and to where I can prove that what I have to say is worth listening to. Because
Yeah.
there's so many people that do want to try, they're out there trying to teach and educate, and they just really haven't, I don't feel, put in the time to like prove that what they have is worth listening to. I mean, everybody's got something to teach, but is it worth, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But I always wanted to
And this
open a
was
place.
after you got certified that you got invited to teach?
Oh yeah, I've been certified for a couple years at that point, and I was already in open division and stuff like that. So yeah.
So you had some credentials, you were, showing that you knew what you were doing. And you're saying they reached out to you?
Yeah, well, I went to Nash to do a oh, what was it? It was some kind of thing they were doing, and I think I did a poodle there, and I did my poodle in Bedlington or Poodlington, and stuff like that. And Vivian was just like, "Oh wow, who are you again?" And I was just like, "Well, here I am." And then I was leaving the guy that I was with at the time, and I was living in like the Louisville area, and I was going to move back towards Nashville. And she was like, "Well, you can come work for me, and there's free housing." And I'm like, "Oh, ding, 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 single mom life. What? Free housing? I'm
Nice.
there. You're gonna. And it just all worked out. It was perfect. I wanted to teach, and it was my first big teaching thing. So I was there for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Nice.
But I always wanted to open something. I've always wanted to have my own salon, mainly because I've been in the industry so long and I've worked for so many people and there's so many. I mean, somebody might beat me up for this, but there's a whole lot of really awful bosses out there. And
It's true. I mean, that's in any industry. I think, just just because you don't want to work for someone doesn't mean you should be a boss all the time,
right,
like I think. And then people will go and work for those bad bosses, and then they get that same mentality as you had, is like, oh, I should run my own, place because I see these other people doing it and I hate the way they do it and I should do it better, before they look around and try to find a cool boss like you. And, maybe they shouldn't be running a business. Just because you hate your boss doesn't mean you should run your own business. I think there's a
right.
lot more involved with it, and people don't even think about what it's going to take, and everything involved with just getting to that point. But you said you worked at quite a few places before you opened your first spot. How many places did you work in, and like over how many years did that take you to get to the point where you were like, okay, I'm ready to open my own space up?
I mean, over the years, it's been quite a few. So, I've been grooming for a while, and then in 2009, so this was
Mhm.
after I think my youngest daughter, she was 3, um, and so I was actually Clarksville's first mobile groomer. I decided to go
Oh,
mobile. Yes, so um, my grandpa was my business partner at that point, and he did all the funding and bought the mobile van. We got like an $80,000 mobile grooming van from Wagon Tails it was used. We flew to Pennsylvania and we drove it back down. And I think that's one of the proudest moments of my life, was coming off the interstate to my hometown. And it's just like, I got a mobile van. What's up? Like, it was pretty
So you
cool.
went mobile before you did a brick and mortar. That was your first kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
entrepreneurial business startup.
Yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to do because it was just hard to find some place to work for in this town. Like that, like I said, that wasn't difficult to work for or created some kind of trauma for you as as an employee. Um, so that worked really well for a while. And then my grandpa had a stroke, and I was going through my divorce, and so there was just a lot going on. And he was like also my bookkeeper, so all I did was it turned into me grooming 8 to 10 dogs a day, and then trying to keep up the rest. And I was just like, let's just sell this
Mm.
while it still has low miles on it, and I'll just go to a brick and mortar, and we'll go from there. So I just went back to work for somebody else in town. There's the lady I was telling you about that bred Rhodesian Ridgebacks. I've known her since, oh Lord, my grandparents raised me, and they took their little poodle to be groomed at her shop. So when I was like 5, 6 years old, I remember going with her to pick the dog up, and that lady owned that place. So all these people, the OG groomers and business owners in the dog world in this town, I've known them forever. Most of them aren't alive anymore, but anyhow, so yeah, I was mobile first and got rid of that. And also, mobile was difficult for me. I mean, it doesn't get super cold here, but honestly, I don't know how people in like New York stick with it. I would
This is
never own mobile
crazy.
again unless I was living in Florida or somewhere where it doesn't get below 60 because
Yeah.
filling tanks in the winter, your water, your hands are, I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I have to walk outside of my van to get people's dogs from the house. No, no. So
Things to
that was
think
a,
about before you go mobile.
yeah. So then I worked for a couple other places. That's about the time when I started back working for her. When I started working for her, towards the end of my time there is when I was like, I really want to. That's when I found the Groomer Groom magazine. Was like, I really need to do something further with my life. I loved being there, but it was stagnant, and I
Yeah.
felt I needed to put myself with people that were trying to do the same thing as me. And there was another girl in town that was kind of doing some industry stuff, so I went to go work for her. I won't name any names, but so and then I just kind of started pushing myself into it and whatnot. And I still knew I wanted to open another salon one day. It's just the timing wasn't right. I wasn't there
Yeah.
financially. I wasn't there. My kids were young and stuff like that. So it wasn't up until I don't even know. It was quite a few years later before I moved to Kentucky. Somebody came to me with an idea that they were renting out their grooming salon in Stewart County, which is the country side of this town, the more country side of this town. And they just they didn't get the whole bougie vibe, and so I
Yeah.
left there and moved to Kentucky with for a man. That didn't work out either, but hey, that's what we do. We're women, right? So, and then that's when it led me to Vivian, and Nash Academy, and then I ended up moving back home after I'd been there for about 2.5 years because my grandparents are here, and my mom was sick, and then she died, and my dad died. So I'm glad I came back. My kid's dad died, so like they got to have some more time with him before he was gone, and so it was a good move back. And then once I was back, I was like, okay, it's time to open something, and here we are. And COVID hit right before I did this, so I was actually out of my house.
Really?
Well, they didn't shut us down in Tennessee because they deemed us essential. So
Hmm.
honestly, I was super slammed because we were doing as many dogs as we could because we were waiting for them to close us down any day. So then we just got
Yeah.
super booked, and then they never went away. It was like, oh my gosh. So, but COVID really
Man,
wasn't
I
what I
mean,
went.
good and bad, right? That just
Yeah,
like good timing, but bad timing, and it all worked
right.
out. But that's awesome.
And the place that I was
So
working for at the
you
time,
you said you started right before COVID hit, or
during COVID, or maybe even right after COVID, I went to go.
just kind of
I
all
did.
at the same time? It was all happening.
It just kind of all happened. I remodeled a room in my house, a spare room. I put a tub into the closet. It's really cute. I turned it into a whole groom room, and I just started grooming from home because the lady that I was working for, she wanted her groom room area back because they weren't really going to do grooming. They had just built this whole big daycare and boarding facility when I was
Mhm.
moving back. So I started working in there, and she wanted it back so she could do more exit baths for daycare and other things. So she's like, "Why don't you just go ahead and groom from home?" And I was like, "Really?" But I did it, and I'm glad I did. And that was the pet studio. I called it the pet studio, and that was like 2019. No, it was no 2019 is when I came up with the name for the pet studio. I was still at Nash because I was going to open that when I got here eventually, and I'm trying to think. My timelines are all off, but I would say 2021. I
But
was
that's cool.
definitely
So you started at home. I mean, I know a lot of people either do that or, go and travel and do in-home grooming because,
I can't stand in home
they don't
room. I
have
could,
that for, I mean, that's a lot of work to have to lug your stuff around and then work in someone's home and they're there. Typically they'll probably
right,
want to just hang around kind of, it's a totally different environment for sure.
right. I mean,
Obviously you
even when
pay a
I was
premium for that,
mobile,
but
there were people that, even though I was in my van, still wanted me to come inside their kitchen and do it because they wanted to watch. And I had
really,
one lady that told me she only
my
wanted me to
God.
come at night, and she wanted me to park a certain way in front of her house so that she could see inside my van because the lights were on in there. And
Wow.
I was
Weird.
like, okay. But anyway, yeah, house calls.
Creeper.
Not if I'm doing a house call,
Yeah.
you're paying $300. I ain't even lying.
Yeah, but if I mean, you were lucky enough to have a space that you could turn into, your groom room area and, run a business from your home. Not everybody has that option. Some people do it in their, redo their garage or whatever, maybe put a little hut in the back or something
Right.
that they turn into it. But if you don't have that option and, you go the in-home route, those are two good options for people that maybe can't afford to go mobile. Like you said, how much did you spend on that? And how, I
Oh,
mean, it was back in the day. So
yeah, it was like
it's
an
way more
$80 rate,
now.
2010.
Yeah. I mean, you get them used and things like that, but that's an investment. You have to kind of know what you're getting into for that. You said you had financial help from, your grandfather. That's always huge. And for people that don't, you really need to put together like a business plan to know how much that's going to cost you and what the startup costs are going to be for what it is exactly that you want to do. Even if you're doing it out of your home, there's still some startup costs involved.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Like you
had to
said, you
have
had to
the
kind of
plumber.
renovate things, right?
I was like, dude, man, it's just putting a tub in a closet.
Yep. Yep. Plumbing ain't cheap. I mean, and then if you
Yeah,
do it right, you probably need permits and all these things. And,
right. And then
you
you
don't
have to
always
have
have to talk about that,
home,
but
you have to make sure that your home is zoned properly. Otherwise, your
that
neighbors might.
too. Yeah. People are just like, oh, I'll grow them out of my home. But like, that might not be legal. You need to check and make sure that you can even do that if that's even a possibility for you. And then, what does that look like? There's all kinds of issues with like HOA and, there's, you just, sometimes you just can't run a home out of or run a business out of your home. It's just
Right.
not, like you said, it's not zoned for that. So, I mean, the zoning goes for anything. You should always be checking zoning no matter what you're doing,
Yes.
where you're at. But, so started out of your home. Now that was not around COVID. That was prior to
That was
COVID.
right after COVID. Like right
Oh,
after.
right after COVID, the home setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were just by yourself at that point?
Yeah, I was by myself. I started out by myself. I mean, I already had existing clientele, so I wasn't taking new
Mm-hmm.
clients. And so eventually I had one of my clients wanted to start bathing for me, and I was like, okay. So,
Ooh.
pulling a little cash on the table. And she went over and dated for a few hours, and then she would leave. But I mean, she had kids that went to school, and then when they got out of school, she wanted to be off. So it worked for both
Yeah.
of us. I only needed a bather to assist me a little bit for the morning. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how that went. And then there's no other room to really groom out of there. I mean, it's one bedroom. I got kennels, I got a tub, I got a drying table.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of it. And then I was trying to think about what I was going to do to open a place, and then I got super lucky. I have a friend that I've been friends with for 20 something years. I actually recorded her son's birth. That's how close we are. And that was 19 years ago. Our kids were the same age. We were pregnant together. We were just sitting down talking one day, and she's like, well, what if I did it with you? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, what if we do this together? What do you need? And I was like, okay, well, this is what I need. She's like, well, let's sit down and have lunch together and discuss it like on a professional level, not just, as friends, but as business partners.
Yeah.
And we did. And I will say the best thing ever is to have a 50-50 business partner. Let me tell you, it's been
Ooh,
the
see,
best
that's
thing.
controversial right there. Because I know some people would say, "Oh, never have a partner, ever, ever." I mean, it could go. You got to do it right if you're gonna do it right. Like, let's talk about, because this is and especially if it's a friend, that can get
Yes.
sticky. You're saying this partner was like, you guys were on a whole nother level of friendship there. So getting into business with a friend is risky.
Right.
I mean, it can be very risky. And then, I mean, just going to business with anybody is risky at the end of the day. So how did you go? I mean, you, like you said, you were like, okay, let's switch it on to from personal to professional, have a conversation about this. But there was, you know, agreements involved, I'm sure. And you guys discussed like, you know, how the dynamic would work. Like, I mean, you're saying, so she was asking you, what do you need? So was she more of a financial just person? Is she like a silent partner? How do you guys, what's the dynamic there with your partner?
So the reason it works really well for me and her is she's not a groomer.
Mm-hmm.
She's never been a groomer. She's actually allergic to dogs. She's a cat person.
Gosh.
So it works really
of all
well.
the things to go into business.
I am, they say if you're artistic, you think more with the right side of your brain. I think that's the right side. Yeah. So I'm a right side of your brain person and she's a left side of your brain person. So together we're one brain because, and not that she's not artistic, but she's a numbers person. She does taxes. She's a bookkeeper. She does payroll.
See, that's awesome. That's what you look for in a partnership for sure. You don't want two partners that have the same skills. You want opposite skill sets, and to also, you know, be able to
manages like a machine shop, and she's a realtor and she sells insurance. So she's just a number person. So she does all the things that I don't want to do, and I do all the things she doesn't want to do. You know, I manage the girls, I run the schedule, I groom in the house. You know, I groom 3 to 4 days a week, my regular clients. I'm in charge of hiring and firing and scouting for groomers when we need them. So we each have our own little niches, and we kind of stay in our lane. And you know, we do a lot of things that are different from other salons that I'm kind of proud of. Not always are they popular with my staff, but like we have like quarterly meetings that we come in here and we buy them dinner. They get paid on the clock, and we discuss things, you know, and touch base with everybody. Everybody gets the chance to have their voice heard if they have something they want to talk about, and we do a lot of communication in here and stuff like that. So that's really cool. I like that. But I've always wanted a place where it was like a safe sanctuary for groomers to be, because there's so much trauma from other places. I'm like, come to me, heal yourself. Like, I will support you. We're here to make you and help you grow personally, career wise. You know, we want to see you become better groomers, push yourself, and, you know, just be in a peaceful environment. We're here for the dogs. We're not here to cause drama and like throw people under the bus. We're not about that. So I want a place where people could come and enjoy working, enjoy doing this job.
So if you could give one piece of advice to someone that maybe is thinking about getting into starting a business in general, or maybe even with a partner, from, you know, the beginnings of when you first started, what would you give them advice on based on your experience?
Well, gosh, there's so many things.
Let's focus on the partnership thing, because I know there's a lot of people out there that consider it, and a lot of people that are like, don't ever, you know, they'll tell you the opposite. They'll say, don't ever get into a partnership, especially with a friend. So what would be like a word of advice aside from like a rock solid agreement? Because that's got to be like non-negotiable. Like, we need to have this ironed out. Exit strategies, you know, what happens if someone dies? All the things have to be in there. Yes, now things you don't want to think about.
because she is a person of that type. She has all that's done. It's kind of out of my hands. She'll bring me a paper. Yeah. She's like, here, sign this, Michelle. We're good. You know, meet me here. Yeah. We've got life insurance. We've just got all the things. If I pass away all of a sudden, all the stuff's covered for her, and she has everything wrote in a book about how to do her job if I had to hire somebody to do what she does, and like vice versa.
That's a huge thing. Yeah. Having SOPs for everything you do. I mean, like, admin stuff for sure, you know, like, especially because she gets hit by a car, you know, God forbid that things happen in life, and you have to think about that as a business owner. Like, that's just one of those things you have to think about is what happens if this person just disappears? Do you know their logins? And, you know, just the simplest things of like, what would we do? Like, how do we even know what they were doing as far as, you know, what their day-to-day tasks are even, but just like overall. And so, I mean, obviously, we're talking about those skill sets and having complementary skill sets as business partners. That's a huge thing. But I love that point of just like making sure things are written down so that you know what she's doing, she knows what you're doing. If anything were to happen, everything's kind of covered. There's some kind of game plan for like how things move forward. If Michelle was to disappear tomorrow, and how would that be handled? Like, you have employees and all of these things, and everybody, they're trained. I assume, somebody's trained to be able to do the things that you would probably do. Or have you gotten to the point now where like you go off on events and things like that? You're still going to grooming expos and you're teaching and doing all these things. You're coming to Groom House and doing webinars and courses and stuff. And so you're not always there. So, I mean, you're to the point now where you can step away from the business for a certain amount of time and everything's still running fine.
It's hard. I would say I learned back at Nash that I had to give up control of what a dog looked like coming into the salon, leaving the salon to a degree. So that's because, somebody else has to do the dog. You have to give them their artistic freedom to do the dog, and you have to let them learn from their mistakes, right? So that took me a minute. So same thing with this. Like, I just have to have faith in the model that I put together, and I have to have faith in the people that I've staffed this facility with. I have a good team. I've got receptionists that know what I want. I've been lucky with them. They're pretty amazing. My daughter, she receptions part-time, and
nice.
She knows how I like things ran. And many of the girls in here, they just they're pretty good, and they just they're here to make money and do stuff too. So it's like they're not trying to see anything fall apart. So I don't know. It just kind of runs itself. Everybody kind of knows. I feel like they love and respect me enough, the good people that I have here, that when I'm gone, they want to take care of my baby as like it's their own, to the best of their ability. So I have a good backing.
Yeah.
So
that's good. It's hard to find, obviously.
It is. I mean, not all of them. And way. If you have a few, 2, 3, you're golden.
I mean, and so as you hired, and maybe you want to talk about how, like, what made that decision. You said you were paying someone, to help you bathe or whatever, but like, you started this new space and you decided to hire. What was your first hire?
Actually, I hired a girl. She was an ICMG, and we met at one of the expos. And she was like, "Hey, I'm moving to Tennessee from California. Everybody's moving to Tennessee from California. It's fine." And she has an English cocker, and so of course that's a big thing of me is English cockers. And so me and her just kind of became friends. And she moved here before I opened it completely, because it takes so much. Oh my God, the codes and the this and the that and the waiting for this to be installed. The flooring, the tubs aren't right. This isn't right. The electrician, everything. It's so much. So
you're preaching to the choir, woman.
Girl,
you don't even know.
Yes.
It is insane. You just don't even know until you know, and then
right.
it's still like
date in mind, and then it keeps getting pushed back, right? Oh, maybe next month you'll open. Maybe next month you'll open. Lord. Anyway, so she started working for me out of my house, because I would just be like, "Look, I'm just gonna have to give up the money." So I just forfeited. Making numbers, so that now that she's moved here, I want her to be able to start making something. So I would start giving her my clients that I knew that she could handle or whatever. And I started doing a little bit less, because 2 people couldn't groom in that room. So I'd be like, I don't know, you do Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll cover the rest of the week until the salon opens. And she was good with that.
That's cool.
So she started, and then, word gets around really fast. People know things are happening. Yeah. So I started having people message me, "Oh, so I see you're opening. Are you hiring?" "Yes, I'm hiring." And then I started posting that I was hiring to see, how many people I could get. And I already have.
So where were you posting?
Groomer for hire, of course, is like, one of the number one things. I would put anything social media that has to do with grooming that I would feel I would benefit from posting something like that. Pro Groomer Network. Excuse me. There's a lot. So
just all social media, just all over social media groups.
Social media. There's a lot of local groomer groups. For every area, pretty much has a local groomer group. There's 2 here: the Nashville area one, the Clarksville area one, and so people talk. and word just gets
Yeah.
around pretty fast. So I had a pretty full staff. I would say within the first couple weeks that I was open, I already had it staffed. So
Nice. So give me some advice on hiring. And like you said, because you have a very specific culture that you've kind of created at your salon where, like you said, tired of the shitty bosses and you want to foster growth and education, and you want to give people the things they need to be happy just in general
right,
as a
right,
worker, and be able to feel that they can progress and get better.
right.
So when you are hiring someone, how do you feel out whether or not they're the right fit for that culture that you have versus, somebody that might just not care. They're just like, I just want to make money and be in and out, and I'm going to rush and, they'll never want to, watch a webinar or go to a seminar. They could care less about that. How do you feel
Right.
out, like maybe some things you ask them, but like, how do you get to that in the interview process to know that they're the right fit for you?
Right. So usually I'll meet somebody at a coffee shop and talk to them first. It's always a good mutual ground. I don't want to drag them up in here if the dogs are barking and things. I can't focus because everybody will be, Michelle, I need you in here. Don't you see what I'm doing? What's wrong with you? So I get a pretty good read from them. I'll have them send me pictures of their work and stuff like that, and we'll talk about that. But I can really tell a lot from how somebody conducts themselves and the pictures of their work. So even if I know that their work needs polishing, if they're taking pride
Hmm.
in their work, if they're, and if they're hungry for growth,
Yeah.
if they come to me and I can feel and the vibe that they already think that they don't need, there's nothing else for them to learn. It's not a good fit. If I think they're not going to take constructive criticism well, not going to be a good fit because I'm going to turn around, I'm going to be judging the crap out of you. Like, I'm not hard. I'm not hard on people and I don't hover over you. But if I feel like it needs a critique, I'm gonna come over and give it to you, and you better be hungry to take it because I'm busy
Hmm.
over here too. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just a
Be
vibe.
open and happy to receive a critique versus like
Right,
offended.
right. So it's pretty easy to kind of get a feel for their vibe, and then I'll have them come in and do a working interview if that went well, and I'll have them come in and do like three or four dogs, a different coat type for the day, and then they'll leave, and I'll be like, so what does everybody think? Like, what's everybody's vibe on this person? Because I don't want to I might like somebody, and then
Hmm.
they come in for a working interview, and the dogs are okay, groomed or whatever, but everybody's like, oh no. I'm like, okay, well, let's discuss this because I don't want to bring somebody in if everybody is not on board and sees something that I don't, and I'm not trying to
Yeah.
disrupt the environment, right? The work culture. So, but at the same
Hmm.
time, it's also hard to find groomers. That's a big problem in the industry. Is not enough groomers, right? So it's like then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, weigh it. Okay, is it worth it because they do good work? Maybe their vibe will change a little bit. Maybe things will get better. And sometimes you gotta like kiss a few frogs before you find a prince. So I mean, it happens. That's why groomer turnover, is kind of high here and there because you'll hire somebody, everybody puts their best foot forward, and a couple months in, you're like, oh. But we have 30, 60, and 90-day evaluations, and then after that, it goes to a
Hmm.
year. So that's the time that we sit down and how are you doing? This is how we feel about what you're doing. We give them like a little report card thing they have to sign, and then we sign
That's
so that
cool.
they know that we keep all that paperwork. It's very businessy, but yeah, it's a little bit of a process, and sometimes we get some good people, and sometimes they come and go. So it is what it is. It's a gamble.
Yeah. I hear it's good to fire fast.
Yes, hire slow
Like,
and fire fast.
yeah, yeah. You need to just like rip that band-aid off. If someone's not a good fit, don't let it linger. Like
I have
it starts
learned
to corrode everything around it, and
I have
yeah.
learned that somebody that's toxic, regardless of how good their work is or how high their numbers are for your salon and how much you need their numbers, isn't worth it. And
Yeah.
I wish I would have learned that sooner. That I will say that because I've had some people in my salon that were like a cancer, and I say
Yeah.
that because it's like not only are they negative or toxic, but then they spread the toxicity. And then even after they leave,
Yeah.
it takes a while to get that vibe gone. you gotta like clean it up. Sometimes you have to get rid of 3 or 4 groomers at the same time because now all of them are still in this mindset, or they hang out after work together. Now they're all still like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's, and then sometimes you have years that you can go and there's, no problems at all. Like I've never, owning a business, and I've had people work for me before, but it's like, I don't know, I've never met so many people that can be toxic. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like as far as working with, like places I've worked, we're like families, we're like sisters, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, maybe it's just a change in the industry that people are more, I don't like people that are catty and stuff like that, and not trying to um, help the next person up, whether it's a guy or a girl. It's like help a sister out, like like if I need some
Yeah.
help, just be nice. Where'd the compassion go? you know
Yeah.
um it's just, it's hard to find good people in general, so it's a struggle.
Yeah. It's crazy. It
And that's
doesn't
one
take
thing.
much to stand out. Like if you're looking for a job, if the
Right.
bar's so low that like you do anything like semi decent or like just a little bit above par, you're like amazing. It's kind of
Right.
sad that it's to that point. But I think we have a question.
Okay.
Tone.
I mean, you guys are kind of already touching on the subject, but advice on recruiting a great groomer.
Yeah. So I mean, knowing they're great. I mean, that's part of the process of the interview. You're just kind of posting around and hoping that's finding somebody good. But now, one thing I did want to touch on was which is kind of what made me want to have you on, actually, is that I saw you post that you're hiring, and we'll get into like the fact that you went and bought a business that already is existing in a whole nother location, which I need to understand how this is happening because I don't know how you're in 2 places at once. Honestly, you must have a clone. But I saw you post that you're hiring, and I loved the fact that you included like photos of the area, and like
Yes.
it was almost like a travel brochure of like, move here. Like you weren't even just trying to recruit people that were local, because the pool is so small locally to find that good groomer, because like you already said, it's so hard to just find good groomers in general. So you're really like advertising to get people to move there,
Yes. Well,
to work for you.
there's a big movement that I'm seeing with all these people that are moving from big cities to smaller towns. And we actually
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of emails from people outside of other countries that want to move
Yeah.
here. I'm like, so that's just kind of gave me the idea. Well, let's just not talk about, the salon you're going to be working at. Let's talk about what you
Yeah.
have to enjoy living in the area around us. So like, and
Yes.
I'm also, Clarksville is a military town. So people come and go constantly. And it's a college town. So constant change in people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just figured, why not show somebody, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are moving. I have somebody that is in Florida right now that's trying to come up here because of whatever reason. She wants this more small town feel, and I'm like, well, I've
Mm-hmm.
got 2 options for you. We've got Kentucky and we got Tennessee. Which one you want? It's nice and country, and one's a little
Oh
smaller
my
town than
God.
the other one. So
So yeah, I loved that. I thought that was genius because you're really broadening, the pool that you're trying to attract, new groomers from, or new for you hires. And just, yeah, the fact that it was like a travel brochure, I was like, this is genius. I was like, I love Michelle for this right now. Like you did such a good job with that. I'm like, I'm stealing that. Thank you.
well, it's such a cute little
That was
town.
like good stuff.
It's like and Clarksville is too. Honestly, both towns are really big water towns. They have rivers and lakes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big boating community, and Somerset has a big car community if you're a car person. There's just so much. So it's like, why not
So that makes good
highlight?
visuals of like the imagery of like, this is where you could be living and working, and it's just like a whole new life for you. So cool.
Yes.
So your original location is in
Clarksville.
Clarksville,
Yes.
Tennessee. And you were there for how long before you had this opportunity to take over this other establishment?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years in. And how did this even like come about? How did you hear that it was maybe for sale, or was it presented to you? Tell me a little bit about this, the start of it all.
Okay, well, okay, so we'll just start with Allison, Allison Brooks. I'm sure a lot of you guys know her. It used to be Allison Brooks Sebastian. She went to Nash. I trained her, and she's pretty much like my third child. I do a lot of seminars with her. I like to call myself her second mother, and so she opened two salons. She did really well. Like she just excelled as soon as she left the academy. And she opened two salons, and one is her baby is the first one, and the second one was where her breeder was at. And she still, she still goes down there and does those dogs too, but she just wanted to focus more on the other one. So she contacted me and told me that she was thinking about selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called.
And where's this located, by the way? We'll just like geographically.
It's in Somerset, Kentucky, so it's about 3.5 hours north of me.
Okay.
And so I called my business partner here, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And we were interested in it for a little while, but she also has so many coals in the fire that she wasn't sure she wanted to take it on. So I was like, "Okay." So that didn't 100% pan out. And I was talking to so I have another best friend who's my number one best friend. They kind of know their spots. One's one, one's two. It's fine. Now she lives in Kentucky now, and I was just on the phone with her, and we were chatting, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do it." And then she called me back like a little bit later. She's like, well, what if I do it?" And I was like, she's not a groomer either.
Man,
the three of us, we all met at the factory when I worked there. That's how long I've known them, right? So, and we just stayed lifelong friends, and so I was like, okay, well, if you're serious about it, let's talk about it. So technically, I have two business partners, one for each salon, and so she is the Jennifer to my other salon. So her name is Christine, and so I just have they're number people too. She's a number person. So
yeah, similar skills,
similar thing. So and I have the same job. Only I just don't groom there right now. Now I will say, it's a different business model. It is a lease spot where you sign a 1-year lease and you have your own LLC, and so it pretty much takes care of and runs itself. I don't need to be up there all the time. I go up there.
So you're just a rental space.
Yes.
How many groomers are renting from that space right now?
Technically, I have room for 6 to 7. It's a pretty big space. I have 2 right now that are signed on that have been there for a while. That location has actually already been voted best of that town 2 years in a row. So I'm also, as you see, trying to get staff for there as well. A lot of people I feel are afraid of the whole going out on their own and being their own business owner, getting an LLC. We have a tax guy that does all of Allison's taxes for all of both those types of salons, and he does everybody's there. And all you have to do is literally go to him. He can set up your LLC for you. He'll do everything for you. He's amazing. And so I think that's the problem up there is that people, a lot of the groomers around there, if they're older, they have their own little shop. Or if they're younger, they're working at a PetSmart or a Feeder Supply or whatever, and they're just scared of that jump. So it's like just kind of explaining it to them because, there's nothing better than owning your own time and owning a business and then not having to worry about the brick and mortar hassles. Like we have it all taken care of. Like everything you'd want in a salon, we have handed to you on a silver platter. You have top of the line tables, top of the line electric tubs. You have top of the line dryers, all the things. I mean, they supply their own tools or whatever, but like you're just all leasing it and it's pretty cheap rent. And, as a business owner, you could make more money commission in the long run out of your salon, more profit, but it's not consistent, right? You lose a groomer or this and that. So if you have somebody that's on a 1-year lease, it's pretty consistent. You always know how much money you're going to make every week. And then at least you can bet on that, so it's a little easier.
And that was how she had it set up. Like that's the way that it had always been. Yeah. So that is definitely much easier to handle from a distance. Probably like, do you have a manager though, like for the space, or do they just can come in and out and it's almost like a laundromat where like it's just open and they have the ability to,
they all have keys to it and they can do 24/7 access if they want to work on Sundays, if they want to work in the evenings, they build their own clientele and they run their own show. We have ring cameras, it sets off when anytime they come in or out. So we just we have cameras, we watch it. We do have a girl there.
So sorry, did you say there's a manager?
There's a girl there that's been there the longest. Her name's Kelly, and she's sort of like a manager type style. Like she lets us know when we're out of toilet paper or paper towels and things, and
Yeah.
she kind of keeps an open eye on things. The other girl's kind of more of a part time. I mean, she still pays the same. She just doesn't want to work as many days. So the other girl's there more. So and we're
Mhm.
all close. We have a little group chat on the phone, and we have a Facebook group chat, and we all talk about things and communicate as well. So I was just up there this weekend, doing some free demos for the area and trying to do like a local groomer meet and greet. We had a good show. People
I
coming
saw
by.
that you were promoting that. So that was there. How'd
Yeah,
that go?
it went really well. Like I said, we had a pretty good show of people. I just want to meet a lot of the groomers in the area that I don't know. There's some that I already know. I actually went. It's a little interesting. I actually took some flyers that I made for it, and I went to every grooming salon in a 20-30 minute drive from there by foot and handed out flyers and was like, I'm doing this.
Wow.
We're having a local meet and greet. I'm doing a seminar. We're going to have wine
That's
and
awesome.
snacks in the evening. If you want to come by, we are hiring. If you know anybody that's interested, you guys have groomers calling looking for a job and you're not hiring, send them my way. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you gotta put yourself out there. A lot of people will be like, well, that's kind of ballsy. You look bad doing that. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be friendly. And if if we end up
Hmm.
getting full and you're looking for somebody to hire, I'll send somebody to you if they call. Like, it goes both ways.
Now, I don't want to get too far into this, but you're saying you're hiring, but they're actually renting. They have to be their own
Well,
LLC and all of that
yes,
stuff.
yes.
So, like,
Hiring here,
technically,
leasing there.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you got it. Like, there's,
Right.
that's a whole other debate
Yes.
there about not people,
Yes.
yeah, don't quite understand the dynamics of the different types of businesses and, like hiring versus, like you said, they're renting out the space and they have a 1-year lease and they pay you and they just have access to it. So that's really cool. I love that. I love the groomer meet and greet as just like a fun way to meet people and, like just say you're hiring without, maybe not mention it if there's the owners, like if they're
Right.
if they're in a business where like, yeah, you're not trying to steal people's employees or anything, but that's a fun way to just, get people together and try to build camaraderie between
Right. I mean, I had
shops
an owner.
and
I had a salon owner that's 5 minutes down the road from that place up there, and they literally messaged me right after the thing, and they were just like, "Oh, I saw you were doing this. That's so awesome. We'll send people your way. We're not hiring anymore." And I was like, "Okay, great." And they
nice.
were like, "Do you need more
Yeah,
clients?"
see?
I'm like, "Well, we don't need clientele yet. Give me a minute, because the two girls that are there, they're full."
Yeah.
So I mean, it's went over really well with the owners of the other salons too. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something to think. I mean, there's different little, I think state organizations sometimes, but like getting super local like that and just getting to know your competitors, which, they really shouldn't be your competitor. Everybody has a
no,
different
we're all
business and
there's enough dogs to groom for everybody to make a living at.
yeah.
There's never any competitor way like that.
Yeah. And everybody's looking for different things, maybe one person does all doodles and one does no doodles. And you find
Right.
those two people and you you can pass, everything that's not what you do to the other person. So finding those ways to collaborate and work together as opposed to, being like, oh, the person down the street is charging this much amount of money and, like they just opened up and this is going to hurt me. Like, maybe not. I probably not.
Right.
They might be just starting and you can send them all the clients you don't want and, just communicate with people that can build relationships. I love that you're building on that community around you. So,
Well,
no regrets.
be in, because
Yeah,
there
yeah,
is
yeah,
some
for sure.
camaraderie and cattery, and that's another thing that I always try really hard, that I've always wanted to try and push, is to get rid of that whole vibe, because there really is
Hmm.
no reason for it. So I'm like anti that.
Yeah, I love it. That's part of like your mission of like why you
Correct.
started the business in the first place. And you're kind of like bringing that out to a whole nother level to the community as a whole, as opposed to just, your salon. So I love that. That's awesome. It's great. It's great to have a mission. So new business, 3.5 hours away from you. Going well, no regrets.
No
I
regrets.
mean,
No regrets. And I know you asked earlier what bit of advice would I give somebody that's opening a business, right? And I would say that that is to really research what business model is going to work better for your lifestyle. Because, like the one up there is kind of self sufficient. The one down here, I have to
Mm-hmm.
be at 3 to 4 days a week at least for it to like continue to grow and for the people here to be happy, you know, and stuff like that. So, and I really think too, here to touch on that is the business model for how most salons have been ran forever, which is like the one I have here in Clarksville, where you know
Mm-hmm.
people are commission based and stuff like that. I kind of feel like that's kind of like the old. I think eventually it'll go out. I think eventually it'll be leasing suites and having like more of a lease environment because it's the just for the profit alone to continue to profit properly in a bigger place like this is a lot harder to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
and the workload for you is so hard. So really researching what business model is going to work good for you, I feel is the number one thing to think about before you get all
Yeah,
into it.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, just also working at, like you said, you worked at so many different places and got a feel for different types, the way, different types of businesses are run, or maybe the way that you didn't want them to be run. You learn a
Right.
lot from that, just, yeah, seeing the different things. And then you did mobile and then you did the in home. So you've kind of done dabbled in a little bit of
I have done it
everything.
all. Yes.
I love it. Now, real quick before, like, I mean, if anybody has any business questions and stuff, definitely comment and we'll try to get them answered. But I wanted to kind of also dabble into your brand ambassadorships that you have had maybe over the years and how that's maybe helped your business, or like also you have to go away from your business to do a lot of these shows and things like that. How did that kind of start, or when did it start in your journey of running your business? Were you doing this early on when you were competing and getting sponsored? If you want to tell who you've been an ambassador for
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sponsored by, also you can. You
So
don't have to, but
the first thing that started was Loyalty Pet Products, and that was before. I want to say that was before I was at Nash Academy, or maybe it was while I was there. A lot of my memory is just kind of not all there, right? But it was around that time. I know I started getting with Loyalty Pet Products. Ryan approached me at a dog show and asked me if I was interested, and I was like, okay. I mean, I was already an open level competitor. I wasn't out looking for anybody to sponsor me or anything like that. Because there was a lot of that
mm-hmm,
starting to go on. That was when it was really big to start getting groomer sponsored and stuff like that. So I said, yeah, let's talk about it. And I took that on. We did that for a little while. We made some scissors and stuff like that. And then that came to an end. And then I want to say while I was I still with them? Anyway, Hydra approached me next, and then Andis. So they all approached me. I think while I was still at Nash, and so I've been with them for 7 years, the both of them,
mm-hmm.
and it's been great. It's been great. I love going to
So are you
shows.
like a strictly Hydra salon? Is that, I mean, I see a bunch of Hydra stuff behind you, so obviously you use the
Yeah, that's
product. But I
that's a
mean, how does
community
that work?
stand.
Do you get like discounts? Do they give you free stuff to make content? Like what's kind of your deal with being an ambassador with them, or sponsor, an affiliate? Like what is it that you do
Right.
now currently?
So I just, I go to whatever shows they send me to. They'll send me a list and let me and ask me, if I'm able to make those. And typically I am, or I'll make it happen because, I love going. They give me a quarterly allowance of product. And then I get paid monthly for the content that I post online. Um, for Hydra, I have to do like 2 videos a month and like post other things and share other things that other Hydra groomers have posted, stuff like that. We're not, I mean, to say I'm strictly a Hydra salon, I mean, there's other groomers that are here, obviously, and they bring
Yeah.
if they want to bring something in and use it, I mean, they're more than welcome to. I don't buy any other product except for there's a lot of good products out there. There's some products that other companies make that I do like, and I do like to have it in stock um, most of the time. But primarily Hydra. I would say 90% Hydra is in the salon. But I mean, it's an amazing product, and why not, right? So
Yeah, no, that's awesome that they approached you. You know, like I feel like so many people just don't even know. They're like, oh, what do I do to get, be attractive to
Right.
companies that may want to sponsor me, and they're making content. So were you already using them prior to them reaching out to you?
Yeah, I had started using them just a little bit before, maybe a couple of months. I found out about Hydra because they were still such a baby company. I mean, they weren't in Brazil. They were already doing a lot, right? But
Yeah.
it was very young for here in the United States. I mean, I think it's only been in the U.S. for 8 years. And I remember one of the first shows I went with Jeremy to, and we were, they were taking product out of the back of his car that he drove there, and we were setting up and dragging it all the way to the booth. And now, the other companies, they just do it for us. So they started out very early. I've been with them for almost since the beginning of it being in the U.S. So it's
That's
really grown a
cool.
lot. Hmm.
See that progression there. Yeah,
Yes.
because they're like, a pretty staple name in the industry now. Everybody's, knows of Hydra. But I like that. That's cool that every company does things differently. So I just like to ask, like how they're doing things and like what the stipulations are as far as like what kind of content you have to put out for them. But yeah, you said you get like a quarterly kind of stipend of just, I guess they say, oh, you can order X amount worth
Yes.
of products. Okay.
Yes.
And then so you get to pick what you like and what you want
Right.
and
Actually, it
order
was
per
quarterly.
quarter.
They just changed it this year with the new contract that it's every month we can put in an order now, and it's
Oh,
more than it was
nice.
before because as the company grows, they can do more for us. So now it's like it's quite a bit. So
Yeah.
it's
So you're on a yearly contract with them with like
yeah.
that whole setup of what you kind of described of, the whole situation. And after each year, do they like, is it renegotiated or have you ever
Yeah,
like,
they'll send you the new contract, and they usually will have like a little meeting, or we'll talk before they send out the contracts and discuss like what they can now do for us that's better than last year, because every year they like up the contract, and it's like it's worth more monetarily
mhm.
or whatever, and it's amazing. I just love it, but it's great.
Nice. So, would you have any recommendations for anybody that may be looking? They have a favorite company, like you said, you already use them. There's a lot of people out there that like have specific companies that they love, that they already make content for, and like could try to post. You were kind of approached yourself, but do you have any recommendations for people that are looking to get into some kind of arrangement like that? Maybe,
Right.
negotiating what it is that you're
Right.
giving for what you're getting. Any kind of
Right.
advice?
Well, first things first, you have to make a name for yourself. You can't just expect to be a little town groomer and then, you don't do any content or build your social media platforms and then just expect companies to come to you. So you're going to have to put in the groundwork, and you're going to have to make a bit of a name for yourself to some degree. And then once you have, you can start working with that company, start messaging them, start posting them, tagging them in your content that you're doing. Contact them, reach out to them. A lot of times they'll post that they're looking for new affiliates,
Mm-hmm.
and you could like apply for it and just go to the shows and talk to the people that are also doing the same thing. Whatever you want to do in life, go find the people that are doing that and talk to them, because that's going to be your best go-to. They're going to tell you everything you need to know, and every company is a little
Yeah.
different. They look for certain
Mm-hmm.
things, and really go with what you love. Don't just go try to be an ambassador so that you can be an ambassador or whatever. Make sure it's a company that you believe in. Like what really brought me to Hydra, aside from the product being good, is the image that they were portraying for in the grooming world, is this classier, edgier, bougier lifestyle. Like, all their ads and advertising was just so classy, and
Mm-hmm.
like, that's me, man. I mean, like, maybe not as classy,
Super
but
high end models and like the standard poodles and the continental
yes,
trim. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. They
high
have a
end,
vibe for
so,
sure.
so luxurious.
It fits with you very well, and that whole bougie feeling of what you were talking about with starting your salon. And so that's a great point to make, is that like even the products that you use in your salon will say something about your brand, because
Right.
that's your brand, right? Like your branding is forget your logo. It's that whole like, oh, bougie, you know, high end. This is the, you know, this is who you are as a business. And to have like, you know, I don't want to call anybody out, but you know, like like there's just some really like common products, shampoos that are just like, nah, there's just, it doesn't evoke that, what you're saying that Hydra was doing with that whole like bougie vibe, you know.
Yes.
They are definitely the bougie brand, I would say. You know, there's a few, you know, Le Pooch, like there's just, you know, there's just certain ones, and there's some really expensive, you know, brands that is just a little crazy, but
changed the labeling in 50 years. It's fine.
it's a thing. Yeah. Like you could have a great product in the worst packaging, and that's it. Like, you know, when, you know, it has to look nice up, you know, especially like you said, if you're making content and doing all the things, like having a pretty bottle on the shelf, it's important. You got to have a nice label. Like it has to look the part. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Note for all of the product companies out there: do better with your packaging, and maybe people will buy it more. You never know.
Have a good product. I mean, there's so much good products.
Yeah, like, it's a shame.
That's directed like towards AKC shows and stuff like that. And I'm like, these products have been amazing and used for years and years and years. And it's almost like nostalgic that the labeling hasn't changed, but at the same time, like you could be doing better if you just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real bad. I agree 100%. But I like that. Like I like the whole idea of the products you're using in your salon. Cause like also you retail, you know, like if you're putting it out for retail purposes in the front for your you know, clients to purchase.
Oh, and Hydra has something.
You want it to look nice too.
Department, by the way.
We can't know. What is it? What's happening?
You know,
I've said too much already.
Just keep an eye out.
Little drip. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to keep an eye out. Hydra. I love their all their advertising and everything that they do for stuff. Like it's like you said, the bougie stuff. It's such a vibe. They've kind of got that nailed down with all like the super high end models and everything. And yeah, I like that what they do. So, no, that's awesome. I'm glad that you've been with them for so long, and to hear that they treat you well.
They do a lot. I love them. And it's a small, I like how they're not trying to get like 20,000, you know, Hydra ambassador. Well, they're called reference groomers of Hydra. And they're really tight knit, and there's not that many of us. It makes it more prestigious to be part of the team. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like some other companies will have maybe hundreds of different people as ambassadors and, you know, representing their brand. And it's just like kind of dilutes the prestige of having a jacket, you know, where, you know, you're representing a company. So I agree. That's definitely a move to make you guys look better too, because like, you know, like why would I want to be part of this if there's so many other people that are already, you know, part of it? It's just like not special anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I love that though. All right. Well, I appreciate you talking to me about all the business stuff, and got to hear all the details of how that all went down. I've been very curious for some time, ever since I saw that happening. I was like, this is interesting. It's a whole nother state. And then I saw the ads for the hiring. So I was like, I got to talk to this girl and find out what's going on. But I'm glad to hear it's going well. That's you know, that's obviously important.
I've got good business partners, and it makes it that much easier, because if you're going to go into business with somebody, having somebody that you trust and that you know has got your back, and you've known for that long. I would say I would recommend it with family. I think friends is a better go-to. Family is really hard.
Yeah.
But it just works, because I think if they would have been groomers, it wouldn't have worked. I think that's what made it work, is that they already focus on that other side in their life anyway. And so it's just left brain, right brain.
Comes unless you were to just miraculously have two groomers that aside from the grooming, like as far as the business goes, maybe one was really good with marketing and social media and, like branding and things like that. And the other one is the numbers person. Like you said, they had the creative and then the numbers.
Right.
Like there's always, there's obviously a lot of things that need to be done for a business. Like
Right.
there's, like you need a whole team, and then, you're just, you are the team. So if you can break that up into two different people, I think that, being a groomer, it could be helpful if you're both grooming. So like, you have that extra help in the salon, obviously, but like you said, keeping those separate, but equal kind of skill sets, where they work together. That's probably the most important thing when choosing a business partner and making sure that's going to go well.
Yes.
And outlining your duties and like what it is that you guys are in charge of separately,
Right.
so nobody steps on each other's toes, and there's decision making, set out in stone, like it's written down, what your duties are. I know what mine are, all those things. So yeah, it's a it's a touchy subject for business partner versus not, and who to even go into it with. So it's enlightening to hear it from somebody who is actually doing it and with friends and
Right.
recommends it.
Well,
Because that's like so rare.
and kudos to people that are doing it on their own, because any facility, and that's where it comes down to your business model. Like, Allison has the leased spaces, so, but she doesn't have a business partner, so she knows that she,
Yeah.
is going to kill herself putting too much on her if she had a commission based bigger salon like I have here. If it wasn't for having a business partner, I don't know if I could still be sane and not locked up in an asylum at this point, because I still groom full time.
Yeah.
So I groom full
Yeah.
time. And if I had to do everything that I do plus everything she does, girl, I mean, it's a good thing my kids are grown, but
Crazy. Give it up to all of the one man bands out
yes.
there
Oh
doing
my.
all the grooming and all the business and admin and everything
Look, round of
involved
applause.
with crazy. Y'all deserve it, because it's just an insane amount of work for sure. We got her frozen. I think she's gone. 2 more seconds. She's gone. Okay, we're going to end it. We were going to end it anyway. Appreciate Michelle for coming on, and she's very approachable. So if anybody has, go ahead and reach out to her. And hope you guys have a wonderful night.